Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us for the session called Educating for the Tech Shortage. My name is Ben Kushner. We'll do some quick introductions and then dive right in. I'm a workforce analyst focusing on employment and training programs, and I work for ICF, which is a consulting firm, and they have federal contracts with agencies such as the Department of Labor, Department of Education, Health and Human Services, Department of Energy. What we do is we work in communities and bring together key partners, including educators, employers, the public workforce system, and community service folks to develop and expand registered apprenticeship programs, particularly in cybersecurity and particularly for youth ages 16 to 21. So let's meet the other panelists. Mike, why don't you start off?
Okay, my name is Mike Broad. I'm the Wyoming State Director for the Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship, and I work with industry partners in the development of registered apprenticeship, as well as working with interested entities to developing the pre-apprenticeship and youth to high school apprenticeship.
Jyoti?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jyoti Dugar. I am currently the Chief Information Security Officer at the National Institutes of Health Center for Information Technology. And we're responsible for the entire enterprise security for all of NIH technology, as well as a few other government organizations, and for over 300,000 researchers across the world. So it's a fun and exciting job, never a dull day. In addition, I'm also a holistic wellness coach and practitioner and a dance director. So lots of different things playing together.
Great. Marjorie?
I'm Marjorie Anderson. I am Casper College's Cybersecurity and Information Systems Department Chair. I also collaborate with our Computer Science Department and our electronics folks.
Thank you. So again, our session is called Educating for the Tech Shortage, and I thought we would tee this up by showing a statistic, an important statistic. This is from the CyberSeek website, and it shows that cybersecurity supply-demand, the cybersecurity supply-demand heat map, and it shows that nationally there are over 507,000 cybersecurity job openings. Thank you. So let's dive into the first question, and I'll ask you, what do employers want from students entering the tech field? Let's see, could we start off with Mike, for example?
With the employers whom I work with, they're looking for individuals that may have the basic training in IT, and but more than anything, have the workforce employment skill sets. They feel that they can work with them and teach them a lot of the IT skill sets that are needed, but they need them with the background in classes or possibly work experience that will help them to be successful in their apprenticeship and in their position.
And Josie, do you also want to take that question?
Sure. So being a manager, especially in the federal government space, but also my experience in the commercial space, what I look for is a well-rounded person that's willing to learn and that's humble as well. So a lot of times when we get candidates for hiring and they come through interviews, we've seen one of two things happen. Either they have the technical skills and then they feel like they're on top of the world and they really don't have that mindset to continue learning. Or we see the other aspect where they have they don't have the technical skills, but they have a well-rounded personality. You know, maybe they have interpersonal skills, they have communication skills, writing skills, and so in my opinion, technical skills can be learned even if it's on the job. But some of these other skills it's a little bit harder to teach someone how to communicate effectively or how to be respectful and things like that, because a lot of that ties back to values and belief systems that are really hard to change sometimes. So I think just a well-rounded person that's really going to be able to come in, learn what they need to learn from a technical aspect, if there are additional things they need to learn, but also be able to fit into the culture of the organization and build those relationships.
So you just brought up some really important points. The culture, the corporate culture, regardless of what kind of work environment this is, and also the balance between technical skills and what I call essential skills, but those are the employability skills, the soft skills, the work readiness skills. Many of the employers I've spoken to over the last 20 years have said, I'm just looking for the employability skills. Give me someone who's ready to learn, give me someone who's adaptable, someone who can work on a team, who's respectful of others in the office. I can teach them the technical skills. It seems to me that in cybersecurity, there has to be some mixture. They don't have to be heavy in cybersecurity, but obviously they'll have to have some basic computer skills. Marjorie, did you want to add to this?
Yeah, I agree, soft skills. And what my guys are saying is basic, what we consider business communication skills. Can they write an email that sounds like a business email, not texting? Can they communicate with other people? And report writing is a big deal because our people work at a really high level and they need to be able to communicate with a lot of people in the organization in writing. So those are good things. The other thing that we're seeing are stackable skills. So we can teach the tech skills we want them to learn, but can they come in knowing other things too? The more they can offer the employer, the happier the employer is going to be.
Right, and so many employers, since cybersecurity goes to all of the sectors and all of the industries, many employers are looking for some basis in the sector or industry, like manufacturing or healthcare, plus an interest and some skills in the cyber side or the IT side. So they'd like that mixture.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask about experience. So in the 20 years that I've been doing this, you just have a unique situation where an employer is looking for experience, but unless they hire someone for the first time in an entry-level position, this person's not going to have the experience. Well, for many of our entry-level folks, they can get their experience in other ways. Maybe they work in a cyber competition. Maybe there's some other way that they can get this experience. Let's talk a little bit about the give and take of experience. And Jyoti, would you mind starting that off?
Sure. So, when I graduated college about 20 years ago, giving away my age, I had plenty of experience because I actually worked jobs with the Department of Defense starting in high school itself through summer internships and whatever programs that they offered. And then I continued through college. So it's not impossible for someone that's coming in straight out of college to already have some experience. Of course, it's not going to be full, or may not be full-time, 40 hours a week kind of experience, but any experience shows that they took the initiative and they were proactive in not just getting their education done, but also trying to get real life practical experience in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be paid experience. It could be volunteer positions. So all of that really counts. And also being an agency or a company offering those kinds of opportunities to our younger generation is also helpful, to offer summer internships or even unpaid internships, just so we can start building that experience in our younger generation so they don't have to wait till they're done with college in order to get the experience.
Marjorie, can you also speak to this a bit?
Yeah, my thing with my students is they aren't very good at communicating their experiences when they have them. They sit in an interview and they don't know how to say it. The other thing is that I think the job process itself isn't very good at showcasing, other experiences. They'll say, well, we want 2 to 5 years, but they don't really in the application process give students a way to showcase other things that they've done. So there's a disconnect that we can work with students and employers on bridging.
I'd like to read from something that I wrote this past weekend when I participated in a cyber competition. Employers are interested in knowing that when they hire a new worker, they will be able to take instructions, manage data, research, obtain and process information, collaborate on teams, guard and secure confidential and proprietary information, solve complex problems, and in general, demonstrate that these and other characteristics, best described as professionalism and work readiness, can be applied to that workstation. If an employer asks someone, tell me something about yourself that would make me want to hire you, students, entry-level workers, other workers should be able to describe their experience participating in something like a competition and how it relates to the qualities that the employer might be looking for at the work site. That kind of sums up this using your avocation or your hobbies and applying them to your job interview.
Yeah, if I might just add to that, doing your research or doing your homework when you apply for a position as well. To come in ready to talk about what is the company or agency that you're applying to, and do your own research on how much information can you find out about this company. So you can come in right off the bat, if you are able to get that interview and make a good impression on your potential managers. Like, hey, this is what I've discovered about your company. I see that you have this many locations. Is it traveling positions? Whatever that you can find. So the employer knows that you have that ability to do your own research to find out as much information as you can. You don't have to be told what to do.
Right, and to try to provide evidence that you will fit into their corporate culture. If you've done the research, you have an idea of what this company is like and what they do, and picture yourself there and describe how you feel like you would fit in very well. Mike, did you want to add anything to that?
I think you covered that. I was just going to add the industry culture information, not only just on the industry level, but then if you go, take it down a bit into the actual company that you're looking at and doing your research on is going to help as well. But I like that idea, and I think it works a whole lot better for a lot of applicants if they go in and, like Jyoti said, do your homework.
Right. So another question I have is, what should students expect at a work site? How should they be ready or prepared? What do they need to know about working in tech? And I'll ask that we show the pages about the occupational profile for a moment. And I wanted to offer this as a resource available. These occupational profiles can tell a prospective student, a prospective worker, what to expect on the job once they get into a cybersecurity position. We can show that a little later, but why don't we continue with the conversation? Jyoti, could you talk a little bit about day in the life of a tech worker?
Sure. So, in my opinion, before cyber and tech were two different things, or was looked at as two different things, versus now everyone's starting to slowly understand that cyber isn't one thing; it's actually everything, and it really needs to be embedded into everyone's roles. So what I'm really passionate about doing is to merge cyber into every field that there is. So especially at the NIH, we actually have almost, we're very diverse stakeholder groups and different types of roles. So it's not just IT staff, but it's also clinical staff, researchers, scientists, system administrators, and then also leadership positions. And really, my goal has been to embed cybersecurity into everyone's roles to some degree and some level. Not expect everyone to be a cybersecurity expert, but really figure out how to do your job more securely. So it's not just the job of a cybersecurity professional or leader. So a day in the life of a cybersecurity professional, understanding that if you're a technology professional joining today, you better get really familiar with cybersecurity as well, because you cannot be a tech professional anymore without having some level or knowledge of cybersecurity. And that was not, probably you couldn't say that even 5 years ago. You could say, oh, I'm just a sysadmin, or I'm just a computer analyst. I have nothing to do with cybersecurity. But now, if you're going to involve technology, which is pretty much almost every field now, I can't imagine a single field without the use of technology. You need to be more proactive and get yourself familiar with the cyber part of that, how to do your job more securely, and how to do anything securely, even if you are at home. If you have any sort of technology, you need to know how to secure that for, if you're an entrepreneur, for a business owner, if you're a mom, if you have kids. So we really can't escape cyber anymore. And what I find to be really unique in cyber is that it's one of those fields where there are actors that are constantly trying to do damage to your organization, to your data, and possibly to you on a daily basis. That's never going to stop. So it is a high pressure, high visibility field, but it's also very exciting. And it's not going to, you're never going to feel like, okay, I'm just going to do the same old thing like every day and that's my job. It's never no 2 days are ever the same. So I find it to be really exciting, but you do have to take care of your own mental health and wellness and make sure that you're not getting stressed and burnt out while doing that.
I wanted to go into a little bit about how we prepare and the challenge that colleges must have with curriculum, on developing curriculum that meets industry standards. And Marjorie, perhaps you could talk a little bit about how Casper College and other schools listen to the skill needs of business and adapt their curriculum accordingly.
So our most valuable tool is our advisory board. We have advisory boards of professionals in the tech industry. They tell us what they're seeing and what they're doing. It is challenging, and curriculum is sort of an ongoing thing. It would be nice if we could pick one publisher, one product, and be done. For example, we've been working with tests out there, things students don't like about it. So we listen to the students and we listen to our graduates. They say, I'm going out and here's some problems. We are actually looking at partnering with Circadence. They have a virtual lab sim called Project Aries, and we will trial that. Within that, of course, there's always a steep learning curve for faculty. There's a steep learning curve for students. And until we work with something, we don't actually know if it's going to work. So we do things in the classroom. We do things in the virtual labs. The curriculum issue is one of the reasons why my instructors tend to want to stick with face-to-face instruction. It seems intuitive that cyber would be one of the things that would work well really online. But, I have instructors that say, I need them in the classroom. I need them interacting. I need to physically be able to talk to them. Because if there are gaps in the curricula, they can address those face-to-face. So
makes sense. So there's another resource available to prepare the talent pipeline, and that is something that both Mike and I work on, and that is apprenticeship. So Mike, I thought maybe you would give us an overview of the apprenticeship, but also add to it the pre-apprenticeship piece and the fact that pre-apprenticeship focuses on the preparatory skills and the employability skills, and how pre-apprenticeship could start as young as the K-12 system.
Right. Okay, registered apprenticeship is a Department of Labor vetted training program, and oftentimes we write the programs with employers and or like with our Cyber Wyoming with the organization, and then we will have either advisory teams or groups that will help us advise as to what the training needs to look like. Or we will have the industry specialists or industry partners come in and say, this is what we need. So it's basically a learn while you earn and grow your own type of training program with industry. And there's 5 components that go along with registered apprenticeship. And one of it is it's industry led. It's not, it's where we partner with an academic to develop the training very specific for the employer and the work that they do. Then we have where we marry that theoretical learning with the practical application. Registered apprenticeship is based off of mastery learning. So the utilization of more modalities are utilized to ensure that the learning is industry specific and or occupation specific. And we look at developing what is called a kind of a wage progression or award system as they learn. So as an apprentice becomes more valuable for the employer, then there is a gain for them, whether it be in an income level aspect, as well as for each level of the different areas of learning as they become more valuable for the employer. We'll look at that. Each apprentice that completes the registered apprenticeship is awarded a national level certification that obviously is portable throughout the United States. And each of the programs that we write a program with, they are also DOL certified. They can utilize that as they complete outreach to gain new apprentices into their programs, so that individuals, as they are coming into the program, realize it is more than just a job. It is a career occupation training program in utilizing the registered apprenticeship model. Now, registered apprenticeship has to grow. They have to become flexible. They have to keep evolving, especially to look at the different type of skill sets that are required more and more as we grow as a nation. So we have developed not only the time-based programs that have been 80-odd years in registered apprenticeship, but now we have competency-based programs where apprentices must have opportunities, multiple opportunities, to demonstrate competencies in the skill sets for the occupation, and or some employers like what is called a hybrid program, where there needs to be some time-based training that goes along into this so that they can have the repetition of the skill sets that are needed in that occupation, as well as I lost the word, as the opportunity to demonstrate competency as multiple times and or as the time period is required by the employer to ensure that they have meet the competencies of the job. Now, we have found, and especially more so in the last 5 years, and with reports I'm seeing it's going to increase in the next 5 years to come, but because of the fact that a lot of young people, as they are coming out of high schools, and I am even hearing it more from employers from colleges, that they are lacking many of the skill sets that are needed for them to be successful in the occupation and or in the registered apprenticeship program. And we address some of that with the employment skills. But also problem solving has been another area that is constantly coming up, and or the use of tool sets that will help them become successful in apprenticeship. So now we have developed in the last decade pre-apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship, or high school to apprenticeship. So pre-apprenticeship could be utilized at any time, post-high school, whatever, but it is a training program that looks at those skills. They gather with the Wyoming, like Marjorie said, they have an advisory team. We oftentimes will have advisory teams that come together based on the different occupations with the employers. And they come together and they tell us what they are lacking or what the young folks are lacking as they are trying to come into the apprenticeship program. And so we work at developing the pre-apprenticeships. And of course, pre-apprenticeships must have that industry partnership involved. And so they come in and they tell us the skill sets that are lacking. And I can tell you the number one skill set is employability skills. Number two is having any kind of practical math type skills, whether it be measuring tools, fractions, whatever, but practical math skills, that are occupation related. And then, of course, then we drill down into it. And we are finding that more and more young people are coming in, and especially those that are coming that have had some college skill sets, in thinking that they are well prepared for the job, and finding they're not. The employers are finding that they are not. They're not willing to listen so that they can learn the industry-specific skill sets that are needed to take the knowledge that they learned in the college and move it into that practical application on the job. There seems to be a big disconnect between the two. And so with pre-apprenticeship and the youth apprenticeship, we're trying to get into the high school levels to develop and work on those skills gaps that may not be technically oriented or theoretically oriented, but the skill sets that are going to help them become successful into the apprenticeships, into the college classes, and on to the workforce. And so working with the pre-apprenticeship and or taking this training into the high schools so that we can have a high school or a youth apprenticeship program.
So this connects me to something I wanted to ask Marjorie, which is tell us a little bit about contextualized learning and how a pre-apprenticeship program doing the basic employability skills training could be contextualized for a real life workforce, a workspace, and talk a little bit about how curriculum can be contextualized.
Okay, so for the pre-apprenticeship, we're usually dealing with high school students, and what we do is we partner with our high school instructor, Kelly Walsh, because we can articulate. So when they take his courses, they're also getting Casper College credit for it. And what he can do is he can build in at that level specific soft skills training. One of the things that young people really seem to struggle with is feedback. They don't like getting negative feedback. They don't like hearing that things are incorrect. That's a great thing that we can teach them. And in terms of context, I think academia is uniquely well suited for providing feedback because, of course, students have assignments. They can get feedback from each other. They can get feedback from their instructor. We have the ability to do that at that level. In terms of the college level, when they actually come on campus, we are working on the dark web lab so that when they do it, they can actually physically be out on the dark web. Because my faculty are professionals, this is what they do, they can modify things that they have done inside of their career. So Eric Salveggio teaches a lot of my classes. Students have to create a network analysis. They have to write an actual report. And he looks at it from the standpoint of, if I'm your manager, but I'm not an IT person, does this report make sense to me? Do I understand what you're saying when you talk about the network configurations? One of the biggest things that I'm hearing from my people that cybersecurity is facing as an obstacle is people do not want to hear it. We don't have an easy answer to that because it comes down to liability. It's if we're breached, but we didn't know, then maybe we can't be sued. And so in terms of that, we also have to work with our young people to say, you're going to actually meet resistance. You go to school with faculty who do this. You have classmates who do this. We're all about the cybersecurity. In the real world out there, you're going to have people, they are actually opposed to the concept of running analysis. You know, the federal government has systems in place. You can run they can run a free assessment. No penalties, no fines, no fees. These are our findings. These are things you need to fix. And so they're going to go out in the world and they're going to be very enthusiastic. Let's find our vulnerabilities. Let's fix these things. And they're going to have employers that say, no, we're not doing that. So yeah, we can really definitely kind of give them this is how it works in real life.
So as the next question, I wanted to ask, start off with Jyoti and ask, what advice would you give to employers in creating the next generation of tech workers? Before you answer that, I wanted to add the importance. Many times we ask our employers to work with us and create things like career days, open house career days, or to allow a student to come in to do job shadowing, or mock interviews, having an employer go to a school and conduct a mock interview so that the students get an idea of what that's like. Can you talk a little bit about ways in which an employer can help develop the talent?
Sure. So, one thing that I think is missing from a lot of employers is looking within and developing talent from within. It is important to also look outside of organizations, but I think a lot of times we're only looking on the outside, and then we're putting people in a box on the inside. So someone might have been there for 20 years, let's say, but that technology is no longer even being used. So let's say someone that came in the mainframe days, a lot of times they're still around, and then they're kind of just doing other things. And then we're here looking on the outside most of the time for tech staff or for cyber staff, without actually looking at who do we already have in our own house, and what can we do to train them to not be a tech worker per se, but to enhance their technology skills and technical skills and all other skills as well, interpersonal skills, communication skills, relationship building skills, business skills. And as Marjorie was saying, being able to speak the language of the person that you're talking to. So if you're a cyber security professional or even a tech professional and you want to do something and the other person is regarding it as a block to the mission or doesn't see the value in it, it is your job to put it in such a way that it actually makes sense for the other person, not necessarily for you. So if you're speaking to a CFO, you have to be able to monetize the value in what you're trying to do. It's not just, well, we want to run this network scan or we want to fix these vulnerabilities. That's kind of speaking German to the CFO. But if you put it from a monetary value, like, okay, well, here's the effect or impact of not doing this. That means, our systems are going to be vulnerable. Here's what could happen. And then this kind of data is going to be breached. And then this is the monetary impact of that data being breached, because it could be held for ransom or whatever it is that you want. It's the ability to tell a story. So when I was growing up, I was excellent at telling stories because my parents were very, very strict people. And I was always made fun of by my mom. Like, you need to stop telling stories. Just tell us, get to the point. And now I'm like, this is kind of really, a really good job trait to have that I found out the hard way. But it's, these are things that I think universities aren't teaching our students, but it's really good. These are really good skills to have for them. So from an employer standpoint, I really feel strongly that, we need to upskill our own workforce first, because it's not that all of our staff, whether they're in technology or not, are up to the point or when it comes to technology, because technology is changing on a daily basis. And if you're not forced to get up to speed of technology, then most people don't do that. So reskilling and upskilling our internal workforce, I would start there, cross-training staff, providing opportunities, like you said, and then also looking externally from the organization and going to the colleges, going to high schools, maybe even middle schools. And I've heard some companies actually reach out to even elementary schools. And it's not just the STEM programs, because again, STEM focuses on science and technology, not really the emotional and social skills that students need to have. So it's really starting from or a well-rounded holistic approach, like internal, external, and when it comes to external, a variety of different measures, starting from, possibly at the elementary school level, working your way up through colleges, and then also looking at the millennial workforce out there, and then what can we do to empower them to have a tech position or cyber position.
and one of our main responsibilities is to teach everyone that cybersecurity or securing information is everyone's responsibility. So it doesn't matter how old you are or where you're located, everyone has to learn something about this. And as you were speaking, Jyoti, I was also thinking about the fact that a tech worker or a cybersecurity worker needs to be a good teacher. They need to be able to tell their colleagues, this is why securing information is important. This is why you shouldn't fall for phishing schemes. This is the importance of avoiding or how to avoid ransomware issues. So they have to become good teachers too.
Yeah, and often I think cyber is looked at as a, there's a saying, it's people, process, technology, but most often we're focusing just on the technology and a little bit on the process and then never on the people usually. Versus I look at it, exactly like that, people first and then process and technology comes after. And because if we focus on the people and we empower our people with the knowledge, the skills, the tools that they need, then there's no question they're going to want to do the right thing, even when no one's watching. But most often we don't take the time to empower our people to have these skills and tools and knowledge that they need. Most often in cybersecurity, people are looked at as their weakest link, which can be true, but if the moment you label someone as a weakest link, it's really not going to motivate them to do the right thing. Like, oh, okay, well, it's kind of like disciplining a child. If you just keep disciplining a child and never focus on the positive, the child's just going to get used to like, okay, well, anyway, you don't have much hope for me, so I'm just going to do whatever I want. But then if you keep reinforcing the positive and empower our people with the tools, with the knowledge that they need, how to do their job more securely, show them the value of doing it that way, and also show them the risk of not doing it that way. And then who's going to say no to that? But oftentimes we don't take the time and effort and energy to do that.
Did anyone else want to add to this? I wanted to go on to the next question otherwise. Okay, so my last question before we take questions from the outside. How should organizations, where should they go to hire these cybersecurity technicians and entry-level tech workers on a cybersecurity career path? Where should they go to hire them?
Well, I'm biased, so I would say out of our programs. But I agree with, the ladies saying, Jyoti, especially, sometimes you don't need to hire somebody in-house. You need to look. I had a student who was doing cybersecurity because she was handling the IT and the networking stuff. She was being paid to be the secretary. And there wasn't an acknowledgement of what she was already doing until she had the degree to go along with it. So I think schools are a good starting point. I think going into the field, companies can do aptitude assessments and find out who on your existing team already has an interest.
I think also if industries would basically monitor their own employees and find their strengths and then utilize the staff that you already have, and especially when they have the industry culture that goes along with it, and then work on training incumbent workers with apprenticeships so that you can, monopolize basically on that knowledge and the skill sets and the strengths that employee has to develop and enrich your organization with all of that they've come with. I mean, you're going to get a great package deal there if you look at growing your own.
Right, and then also beyond growing your own, there's been a respect for word of mouth. So a lot of employers feel like if you're a referral from somewhere else and it's someone I trust, that's a better referral than someone who is right off the street, brand new, I'm not familiar with them. So a word of mouth. And word of mouth could come from chambers of commerce or EDCs in the community. And I also want to make a pitch for the worker career centers, the AJCCs in the area, where unemployed and dislocated workers go to be reemployed. So that would be a good source to try to find employees there. It might also be a good source, tell me if I'm right here, Mike, it might also be a good source to start the process of working in registered apprenticeship.
And it's also a good source that if you do want to do the registered apprenticeship, that will help fund the training.
Right, right. So your work has access to these leveraged funds that will give you a better return on your investment if you do become a sponsor employer in registered apprenticeship.
Yeah, and I would just quickly add, if you are looking for a position, make sure that your LinkedIn profile is also optimized. Don't just talk about what you want, but instead actually put what you offer. And a lot of people feel really uncomfortable in speaking about themselves or putting information about themselves out there. Definitely not personal information, and you're not boasting about yourself. But if I was an employer and I was looking at your profile and all it talks about is the kind of position that you want, then I'm kind of like, okay, well, there's nothing exciting there. But if you're talking about what you actually offer the organization and the type of experience that you're already coming with, and then somewhere we weave it in there about what you can offer the organization and then what really excites you. And then I can feel like, oh, wow, this sounds like a very different kind of person. And you stand out from a sea of other people that are just kind of putting themselves out there. And then they're just, and all of their posts are just about, hey, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. I'm like, okay, well, go on the website and see if we have something. But if you're coming from a very different angle and you're optimizing your LinkedIn profile for that, you're going to stand out to most employers.
Yeah, Jyoti, I would also say that younger people with less experience in the workforce need to practice that more. When I was doing job search coaching of older workers, I would make a suggestion and the older worker would go, I never thought of that. That's a great idea. I'll definitely incorporate that into my interview process. I thought, well, for sure, I'll be able to coach any age group. So I went to coach people at the college level, and they were like, that's not important. I can't imagine saying that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put that on my resume. And I'm thinking, this is really frustrating. They have to learn the importance of some of the other work that they're doing, similar to what we said earlier. If you work in cyber competitions, it shows teamwork. It shows problem solving. This is what you ought to talk up in your interviews. So maybe that needs also to be taught as part of the employability skills curriculum.
Well, may I add, also look at, I just had a situation yesterday with a young man, monitor and eliminate any negative information that you are going to have out on the web.
Yeah, be very careful about your footprint, social media footprint, and the fact that for the most part, when you're looking for jobs, you're turning over the right for employers to look at your whatever profiles are public, and even some things that you may not realize are actually public that you think are private. So your footprint is very important.
That's a great point. So any comments you make on even other people's posts, if they happen to be derogatory or sometimes even racist or anything like that, you need to be very careful, especially if you're looking for a position, because those kinds of things are monitored and they can be seen by potential employers.
We have a few more minutes. I wanted to see if there were any questions that we could take from the audience.
There was a question from Jedediah saying, what is the best way to approach a business owner who has the attitude of, I've been doing it this way for 20 years and I've never had a problem from a cybersecurity standpoint?
I can start. Well, cybersecurity is changing by the minute. So just because something has worked for you 20 years ago does not mean it's going to work today. And also, how do you even prove that nothing has happened without having the tools and technology and the people in place? Because if you've seen all of the recent incidents in Target, Sony, didn't know that they were breached until 6 months later, until something else happened, and then they realized, hey, why are we sending this data to a foreign country? Oh, okay, looks like we've been breached for the last 6 months and we didn't even know it. So I always use the example of a home security system. So when the security system is there, but it's turned off, how do you know that somebody didn't actually come in through this open window in your basement that you didn't know was open, and it's actually sitting in your basement, but you haven't gone to your basement the last couple of days? So how do you know that the intruder's actually not still there? And it's a little bit scary to think about that, but it's the same thing in your digital environment. How do you know that when you didn't actually have the right tools, or maybe you had the right tools that weren't being used in the right purpose, which happens all the time, that you don't know if somebody actually was able to get in and they're just kind of sitting there monitoring your network without your knowledge?
And you know what, Laura? I would advise them to listen in on the session we had a little while ago on cyber insurance, because then they'll see some really scary stories, and also some webinars from the Department of Defense. They will really frightened. I've been very frightened by what I've learned from the Department of Defense and in the session that I just attended on cyber insurance.
I would also suggest dealing with some of the emotions behind it. Part of what we deal with is people feel like they're not quote unquote tech people. They think that if you implement something, it's going to be hard, it's going to be complicated, they may not understand it. So if we can start them with something that's relatively straightforward, that's easy, then we get into the yes, everybody is a tech person where cyber is concerned, and everybody can do these things.
And maybe the easy thing is showing them what a phishing scheme is. Mm-hmm. One of the phishing schemes that I heard about was someone who's filling out a questionnaire on which character from the TV show Friends are you most like.
Right.
You all kinds of personal questions. You're putting all those questions in and giving away a lot of information about yourself.
Yeah. And another one that works well, especially with restaurants, is start by saying, secure your pay thing, because I've seen people put it on their phone and walk off. So, just say physically, you can handle this better. Your employees can deal with this better.
Is there another question, Laura?
Nope, I don't see one. Somebody just said changes in technology is a given. We all understand that cultural change is more difficult. How would you deal with that? And then I think that's the last question before the session needs to be over. So,
Sophie, can you start off on that one?
Sure. So I actually have a different take on that. So, because I tried for years to change the culture in organizations, and what I found was the culture is the culture. You don't need to change the culture. What you need to do is find the strengths of the current culture and use that for you as a tool. So, for example, like even you have a culture everywhere you go, right? You have a culture within you, the culture that you were raised in. You have a culture in your family. You have a culture in your organization. It's really hard to, and it could be, your culture is stemming from like years and years and years, probably hundreds of years of people following that culture. And for you to come in and say, okay, I'm going to change it, is going to be very hard for you to do. Even as a leader, it's really hard to change the culture of an organization. So what I find actually works better, or is a more effective approach, especially if you're in cybersecurity, is actually find out what are the strengths of the culture that we're in. It's not that the culture is completely wrong, all negative. There's really nothing good about it. There's usually at least 10% that's actually good. So use that 10% in your favor in cybersecurity, and then kind of work your way up from there. So, for example, at the NIH, we have a very strong culture in the sense that we're very nurturing, and we're very kind of like a sharing culture, which sounds great, unless you're in cybersecurity, because the cybersecurity is not one of those where you really want to share with everyone and anyone, and everyone's welcome to this information. But you can use that to your favor. So, okay, great. We love to share information. We're very nurturing. That's great. So how can I make this cyber knowledge and tools, how can I share that among the community? and come from an open place instead of a very closed, like, nope, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. You can only buy this. So I'm like, let me share the knowledge with everyone. Let me share the tools, the cybersecurity tools with everyone. So use the culture, use the strengths of the culture in your favor versus trying to change the culture would be my perspective.
I want to add also that sometimes cultural change is forced upon us. I have been employed in an era when remote work was forbidden, that if you are not at your station, you are not productive. So I worked at the federal government for 8 years. In the early 2000s, I saw a change in that culture. It started, during that time, people were allowed to do some remote work. They were allowed to work maybe 1 day a month, 1 day a week. And then look what happened with COVID. We were all working from home. What has happened with productivity? So some companies have found productivity is actually better because people aren't commuting. And some are dealing with any productivity losses that they've had. Any other final thoughts from someone? Okay, I want to thank you. This has been a great session. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and take a look at other resources associated with our session, which you will find helpful afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.